everybody, welcome to Tuesday. So I did a Twitter poll about should I talk about, the entitled gamer stereotype backfiring, or should I talk about The Last of Us 2 internal Xbox review that leaked? And a commenter went, why not both? And I'm like, you know what? They are connected. But the poll was overwhelming that you wanted me to talk about the entitled gamer stereotype backfiring. And so I'm going to do that, ending with how the internal Xbox Last of Us 2 review ties into that. Okay. Now, the whole entitled gamer thing kind of came to a head back in 2012 with Retake Mass Effect. Remember that Mass Effect 3 came out in 2012. This will be important later. Okay. I am going to give credit to Eric Kane, who wrote about this at the time and was right at the time. One of the few journalists writing about this stuff at the time who was right. I did not write about this because in the pocket of games journalism that I was a part of, nobody defended the Mass Effect 2 ending. I was gentler on it than my colleagues because I was like, well, if you're gonna shit the bed on something, shitting the bed on the ending of a game is better than shitting the bed in the middle of a game, because better it be a great experience at a not great destination than remember all those recycled maps in Mass Effect 1 where every dungeon was the same fucking footprint. But there was nobody in my circles defending the ending of Mass Effect 3. So a few years later, when I found out that there was this whole Retake Mass Effect controversy that I had missed neck deep in writing actual game reviews, I was like, tell me more. And basically what it was is that fans wanted the ending changed. They weren't happy with it. And quite a few members of the, the more influential gaming press called gamers entitled. They said these Retake Mass Effect people were entitled. If you like this sort of history lesson, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. The argument was made that gamers shouldn't dictate what stories a game tells. As Eric Kane points out in his article, that wasn't what was going on with Retake Mass Effect. Retake Mass Effect was about gamers saying, give us the game you promised. As Eric Kane said here, let me make sure. Yeah, okay. The print's so small on my OBS. Okay. Players had been led to believe that the choices they made in all three games would affect the outcome of the final chapter. The one resounding complaint over Mass Effect 3 is that gamers feel as though the choices made no difference, that unique Commander Shepard was not so unique after all. And therein lies the crux of why the entitled gamer thing was always wrong. There is a big difference between give us the game we want and nothing but, and give us the game you promised us. One is I bought this based on your assurances I would get these features. I paid for a car with air conditioning. There's no air conditioning in this car, right? A feature is a feature. And I want a Mercedes and I only paid for a Civic. Yes, the latter is obviously entitled. The former is not. And this entitled gamer thing, it's lumped in some people who, yes, are mentally unstable and use games as a coping mechanism, and so they don't handle change well. There are a lot of other reasons that some people don't handle change well. They get whipped up, they get caught up in the emotion of the thing, and they don't necessarily behave well. There are a lot of explanations for this that aren't entitlement. And if you want a definition of entitlement, the entitlement definition I'm using right now is the belief that one is inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. Okay? Remember that. Inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. Because this entitled gamer narrative, stereotype, has taken on a mind of its own. Okay? Because it's affected the way gaming sites and even some game companies approach the people who might buy their games. Okay? Two things. One, around the same time as this retake Mass Effect thing was happening, Tropes versus Women came out. And what was really patrician gatekeeping on the part of dudes in the gaming industry who were like, all right, fine, I guess we have to listen to some woman to seem to be listening to women. And, this woman seems exactly what I expect. Anita Sarkeesian doesn't seem to like anything, which, let's face it, what woman likes video games? This must be how women feel, so she has something important to say. Watching the whole thing happen, having been in gaming long before that, I'd been writing about games for about 4 years by that point. I started in like 2007, 2008. And being a gamer all my life, I saw this, that it went from me being told that I like BioWare games because I'm a woman, because I'm a girl, even though that's not what the sales data about RPGs in general says. To being told that I must have problems with damsels in distress because there's okay, this is the woman we're gonna let in. 'Cause this is basically a setup to fail strategy that we're going to try for a while, prove it doesn't work, and then go back to what we were doing. But, we are kind of perverts. She's not wrong about that. Thinking that their perverseness was how all people who like women approached sexy ladies. Like, that was the insider thing. People don't believe me, but the nice thing about being a woman in gaming at that time is you were around long enough, people forgot you were there, and they forgot you were a woman, and they started saying what they really thought. And that's what it sounded like to me. But if you weren't the proverbial fly on the wall in those conversations from the outside, that, Tropes versus Women showing up and saying we're entitled to better only game, even though women are this minority of the gaming consumer base at the time. Well, rank and file gamers are being called entitled in the bad way. From the outside, I see how that looked like, what the fuck? This is a double standard. Okay? It was actually a bunch of decisions made by people who just can't stand everything. Because what was going on at the time, of course, was that these guys who had built up their little fiefdoms in like gaming websites or even, gaming companies and thought they were going to be the masters of this new universe in the tech space. Oh no, Xbox had other ideas. Xbox really deliberately rebranded what gaming was. And so instead of these nerds from the 80s and 90s, which I was one, I was born in the 70s, instead of, them becoming the masters of the universe, of course, it was never going to be women. It was all going to be guys. But the X-Bros came in with their celebrity and athlete spokespeople and totally like, nope, we're the new hotness now. And of course, the women who had been treated like shit by the guys who thought they were going to be masters of the universe all along. And this is not true of every guy I worked with. There are some wonderful guys I'm still in touch with, but there were enough of them. We were all like, yeah, you treated me like shit, so I'm going to take my chances with the new guy, right? Wasn't necessarily all that better. It was better. I still prefer dealing with gamers than any of those types in the games press. But meanwhile, while that was going on, right, the actual game developers, the people making the games, who, for the most part, like the people in those credit scrolls that you see, they like making games. They care very much. They want people to like their product and just have it take them away from their troubles. They don't really have political agendas. They just want to make stuff that's fun. They're going, what the fuck do we do? And a lot of the creative director level is even, who just want to make stuff. They're not really into this culture war. We're like, how do we make and market a game without completely pissing off some mob? And what they realized is you can't. You can't. You're going to piss somebody off. You have to pick who you're going to piss off and just go all in, right? And when that happens, gaming totally lost its ability to make decisions based on the merits of an argument. It all became about the shifting sands of popularity and which mob do you want to piss off. Some companies are still trying to keep a big tent, but it's really hard, right? And the problem is, if you don't go all in the way The Last of Us 2 did, I still maintain that game stumbled, but you know I don't like that game. More on that in a bit. On the one hand, if a game seems like it's for gamers, right? Which is supposed to mean stuff now. You know, this is a game for, brackets, entitled gamers, right? And there's any diversity in it at all. Those, you know, the cartoon stereotypes that are now defining a much bigger group go, what the fuck is this woke shit? And then places like Kotaku pick up on the five guys who are like, what's this woke shit? And that becomes a story. And the rest of the gamers are like, I was fine with it. It's this combat mechanic. I'm not entitled. Right? Other way around, you know, they market to progressives, which, come on, I can't even recognize the progressive movement in gaming anymore. More on that in a bit. Because when you market to progressives, you get choice cuts like this, okay? And I don't want to blame Ash Parrish for this, okay, the author. There's a really good personal essay in this, but people don't get to it because of this fuck off entitled gamer headline. Sorry, your cis white woman protagonist isn't progressive. And I saw this, I'm like, I looked at the picture, I'm like, wait a minute. One, Commander Shepard is from, remember I said 2012. It was progressive at the time. This was the first time Commander Shepard even had a default appearance as FemShep. It's from 2012. You're judging something in 2021 that was created in 2012. Lady Dimitrescu is not the protagonist or the playable character. And Commander Shepard is also a customizable character, and you can make her any race or color you want. Except green. She has to be human skin tone. But they were so interested at Kotaku at just bashing the presumed entitled gamer audience, okay? Saying cis white women are a safe option. They are just as much the default as the white men they replace. What? When companies want to look progressive and inclusive, they hire white women. When video games similar to want to look progressive and inclusive, guess who gets put on the box? You're so irritated by the end. When she goes back to something that happened in 2012, when it was new, that you don't get to the real point. That if I were an editor, I would have gone, this is the persuasive part. Now, silly me, I still think that commentary writing is about persuasion. It's not anymore. It's about an excuse for a headline that gets outrage clicks. So in this case, it did its job. But this is the part I think people need to hear about, and it got lost in the bash the entitled gamer game, okay? It sucks when games forget about you. It also sucks to be constantly told to wait your turn. Almost 5 years after its launch, Overwatch, a game in which its colorful, disabled, and queer characters are a large part of its appeal, still doesn't have a playable black woman. Sojourn's coming, I know, but Overwatch 2 doesn't have a release date, and we've been waiting almost 5 years now. Yesterday, the Overwatch League announced an MMA-themed skin that features cornrows for one of its female characters. After seeing the skin, I joked that cornrows, a style worn and popularized by black women, got added to the game before there was even a black woman to wear them. Now, I will say for MMA enthusiasts, yes, box braids, which are what they're called when white women wear them, are a part of MMA because it means you can't get your fingers into a ponytail and use it to pull. I know that, but it was just a joke. I just adding that to let you know I know that. You don't have to comment on it. I still thought the joke was pretty funny, and made a point. And I understand, and this is why I think she didn't pick this title, okay? I understand that any change is better than what the video game industry was like before. Let me repeat. I understand that any change is better than what the video game industry was like before. Well, isn't that progress? Isn't that progressivism? So any change is progress, okay? There's nothing wrong with being excited about a skin or a video game starring a cis white woman. I just caution against seeing those games as indicative of real progress. Well, any change is progress. And I wish an editor had sat down, because this is the sentence I think I want more on, because this is a human moment, not a political moment. There's an unintentional erasing effect that can make marginalized people in the community feel invisible. That is an urge. That is a feeling. That is universal. People know what it's like to feel that way. Okay? There's so many irritants and just factual inaccuracies before we get to this point, because then the article mostly ends, right? It does a disservice to the real gem that I think is an important perspective. The idea of an unintentional erasing effect. Welcome to being a woman who's larger than a B cup. Before Lady Dimitrescu, we had been almost, and in Widowmaker, we'd been almost nearly erased from games too. And that was an intentional erasing effect. So I can relate to this. I think a lot of people can relate to the idea that they're erased. The problem is that this article, in its tripping all over itself to irritate entitled gamers, the headline, "Sorry your cis white woman protagonist isn't progressive, erases people with mental and physical disabilities," who are still cis white women, disabled women with disabilities, and women with mental illnesses are still women. Some are still cis, some are still white. They're still women. Your headline erases disabled women. Kotaku. Holy shit. Is internal consistency too much to ask? Because yes, it is. Because they lean so far into the entitled gamer thing that they fall over themselves, and their article, it's great search engine stuff. Look at the number of searchable titles in this first paragraph. Returnal, Resident Evil Village, Lady Dimitrescu, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Mass Effect Legendary Edition. It's any game you Google, this article's gonna come up. That's well done in terms of SEO, but that could have been used to bring people into a really personal article about, the fact that cornrows made it into Overwatch before a black female character did. I think that's a real fair point. I think that's a real oversight in a game with a roster that large. I'll give her that. And you know what? Any article at Kotaku these days, ironically, any article at Kotaku these days that makes a single valid point is progress. But here's the issue. Games are not required to be progressive. That suggests that AAA games must privilege or entitle one portion of the gaming market above all else. And based on, all the polls and voting intentions where most people don't identify as progressives, they're independents, and there are, it's about what, a third Democrat, a quarter Republican ish, but most of the country is independent in America. And we're more progressive up here in Canada, but still we're a very different kind of progressivism. It sounds entitled to demand that games be progressive instead of inclusive, right? Because I think there are a lot of Black Southerners who don't identify as progressive, but still would like to see themselves represented in games. We got to be really careful identifying any particular race with progressivism, because there's a lot of Hispanics and a lot of Black people who don't identify as progressive. They don't identify as liberal. They're either moderates or conservatives, and they matter too, right? You cannot erase nuances from, you cannot make any racial group seem monolithic. That's erasure. So unless Kotaku is prepared to have a whole bunch of games come out in the market with, an obvious conservative slant, and, they go crazy when anything's even remotely pro-military, well, demanding that games be progressive is entitled. And I don't think she intended to say that. I think what she was saying is, if you're using this to market to progressives, it's actually not. All right, different point. But that's not how the headline primed people, right? And unfortunately, the truth is, again, I've talked to developers who pushed really hard to have Black female protagonists in AAA games, and they got shot down because having a woman protagonist, standalone, not a choice, but a standalone protagonist, like in Horizon Zero Dawn, that is really hard. And getting a Black protagonist, standalone, not customizable, that is really hard still. And no, I will not tell you who said this, because people talk to me knowing I will go to my grave before I tell anybody. This is what we call protecting sources. But it's also not like there are other races, right? Like, if it's a single playable character, somebody's going to get left out, unless, like, it's like the Malcolm Jamal Warner character on a Resident who's like a Black guy who got adopted by Asian people, but he's still a guy. So no matter what, you cannot have a single playable character be all things to all people. It's just not possible. But the fact that it's that hard to get a woman, and it's that hard to get a Black guy as a lead, it is really embarrassing to say that the industry is not there yet at AAA to have a standalone Black female lead in a title designed to sell gobs and gobs and gobs of copies. I hope Grand Theft Auto 6 does it, because they might be the only one who can. The minute Grand Theft Auto, the ultimate gamer franchise, the ultimate non-PC franchise, drops a game with a Black female lead, then everybody else is going to feel safe to do it. But Grand Theft Auto's got to do it because they're not PC, right? And it could work. Because I said this before on Twitch, like, if you had one of the hookers from Grand Theft Auto 4, okay? Her kid saw her mom get killed by the protagonist of Grand Theft Auto 4. And now she's mad as hell, and she's taken over, I forget the name of the city in Grand Theft Auto 4. I don't remember if it was the same as 5. But she, like, it's this open world. You get this, like, hooker underground crime army to take over the town. Either by business or by killing. Or I'd play the shit out of the game. Anybody would play the shit out of that game because, oh my God, it's a hooker army, right? It's practically a blaxploitation film, sure, but that's the only way we're going to normalize the experience, right? The minute it starts being political, people are like, this is not what I signed up for. And I think the games press and the gaming industry has lost sight of that because they've got this idea that gamers are entitled and therefore need to be disabused of their wrong think, right? And that's not only condescending and authoritarian, but it shows a lack of leadership and wisdom, meaning that these are not the people that should be in charge here. It's taking away, when you come in at things that way, that gamers need to be retrained, it's taking away the most powerful persuasion tool in gaming. Choice. Letting players make their own decisions and letting them experience those decisions. That's an incredibly powerful persuasion tool. People, because you don't get a backfire effect in decision making and thinking, people are like, all right, I'm going to experiment with this choice and see what it is. Oh, okay. Choice is an incredibly powerful persuasion tool. That this whole entitled gamers thing is making the industry forget. And this is not leading to better games. And this is where I come to the leaked internal Xbox Last of Us 2 review that is very short, but still very painful for me because I don't have, as much on the Xbox side. And I'm like, this is what they're thinking. This explains so much, but at the same time, ye gods, please turn back now. Okay? I don't know if you can read this. The print's really small. But The Last of Us Part 2, like its predecessor, is first and foremost a narrative adventure game. This is unlike Naughty Dog's other key franchise, Uncharted, where the narrative, while very well told, is there more to service the action-adventure gameplay. Talk about plenty of stealth action, Okay, this is where it goes to shit. Okay. Begins to go to shit. While there is plenty of stealth action gameplay in The Last of Us 2, the game's primary purpose is to immerse the player in the interactive narrative. No, Xbox reviewer, Mike and John. There is no interactive narrative in the game. It is a linear narrative. It is not interactive. The player has no control over it. Retake Mass Effect. Okay. You keep using this word interactive narrative. I do not think it means what you think it means. The game pushes this idea even further than its predecessor by incorporating a number of extended walking simulator style narrative chapters. These play out much like the first game's standalone expansion chapter Left Behind. While these may not be what many gamers are expecting, they are exceptionally well done and really show what other games, especially pure narrative adventure games, should be aspiring to accomplish with their character dialogue, presentation, and voice acting. No, because narrative adventure games need some form of choice, or they are not games. They are movies. Okay? The game involves interactivity. John and Mike. Okay, I reshifted this so I don't block the text. Okay? In order to achieve the detail and believability of the character interaction and dialogue in the game, Naughty Dog has made a clear choice to sacrifice much of the player's agency in the story in favor of fixed outcomes in order to achieve the highest production values. We've taken out the game in the game to make it look really pretty as a movie, is what that means, okay? That the player doesn't have the ability to greatly influence or determine the outcome of the narrative might prove anathema to many players and how they view their role in the video game experience. However, we would argue that not every video game must be about the player role-playing their character's story. In case people are lost and they're so, well, what's the problem with that? Yeah, Uncharted, you didn't have much control over the outcome. They're going, we're going to make a really great walking simulator. And then give the character no control over narrative branching or the end. A walking simulator with no narrative agency on behalf of the player is a movie. You might as well be with your controller with Netflix on your TV pressing pause and play and pause and play and occasionally rewind. It's not like, it's not a game anymore. There's no interactive components. Not really. Okay. Um, it goes on and on and on. They claim the gameplay is an improvement, but the point, I'm like, no. This entitled gamer thing is alive and well in this attitude, and this is internal documentation. Okay, they say that the shooting combat sucks. Naughty Dog still can't do it, but the last couple paragraphs really worry me. Okay, it says Naughty Dog still can't seem to make decent gun combat in any of their games, and this one's no exception. Lucky for them, it fits in with the game's overall theme and pushes the player towards using stealth. So does Days Gone, and the shooty is still pretty fun. Okay, they say the weapon wheel sucks. All right, or the D-pad. Players certainly have every right to their subjective feelings and opinions on the game's narrative, on Naughty Dog's choice to make players play as diametrically opposed protagonists, or in the game's final contentious outcome. But as someone who cares deeply about the evolution and expansion of what storytelling and interactive entertainment can be, those things ultimately matter less than how incredibly well Naughty Dog have crafted and delivered the story they wanted to tell. What I get from this paragraph is, gamers have every right to their feelings. They're just wrong. We really care about the evolution of this industry, and it's about what the developer wants to do. Like, these are interactive. If people aren't enjoying your product, they're not going to buy the product anymore. Okay, not every game's designs can support the level of visual detail they produce, and not every team has the money or talent needed to produce it. But this game sets a new bar for what we should hope to be able to achieve going into a new generation of consoles. The Last of Us 2 is the exceedingly rare video game where what it accomplishes in moving forward the art of narrative storytelling in video game as a medium ultimately outweighs whether or not everyone likes it, or even if everyone has fun playing it. That said, we loved it, had a great time playing it, and find ourselves still thinking about its characters and stories even after finishing the playthrough. I'm sorry. Ultima 4, okay, is the exceedingly rare video game where it accomplished in moving forward the art of narrative storytelling. That game was innovative. Quest for Glory, the original Quest for Glory, was innovative. Even BioShock, in its own way, was innovative, and it played with illusion of choice. Gears of War did, incomplete storytelling. There is nothing innovative in providing less narrative choice in a video game. According to this guy, moving forward the art of narrative storytelling in video games is making it more linear. Because entitled gamers! This is what I mean. This is why it's backfiring. This attitude, if Xbox adopts it, is going to lead to another disastrous cycle for Xbox first party. Now, hopefully, some of the shooter developers will go, nah. But this is what they're saying internally. Game good because it more like movie. More story developer wants to tell. Less player agency. It just has entitled gamers all over it. And this is not the way forward. It's not. I have no problem with games telling the story they want to tell. You just don't get to create a completely linear narrative and then claim you made some big innovation in interactive narrative. But if you say that, you're an entitled gamer, because guys like Mike and John, who really love and believe in innovation, they think it's great. Entitled gamers! Notice the two people who reviewed the game are named Mike and John in a game with two female leads. No woman internally at Xbox reviewed the game to maybe get that perspective. No two dudes did it. Talking about progress, you see why somebody like why Ash over at Kotaku is frustrated, right? You understand Ash Parrish's frustration. But nobody has the language to go, okay, how do these games work as games? And how can we open people's minds and make people less judgmental through freedom of choice? Because we are creating interactive experiences here. This isn't a movie where people sit and watch. This is a game where people sit and play. How can we innovate there? No, both sides coming at it from different perspectives think that the way forward is to lecture these fucking entitled gamers. And it's not. There's a cognitive fault called the backfire effect. The more you push, the harder people are going to dig in. If you truly want to progress, you need to loosen up. The nice thing about that is if you loosen up and just tell a story instead of lecturing people and demanding they think your way, they also have more fun. And if you get off the whole entitled gamers thing, you'd see that. The way Ghost of Tsushima did. Which created a game. No white people in it at all Asian. Plenty of great female characters. Many over 40. Some not straight. And it was a great story. Full of emotion. And it won awards. And it sold like butt monkeys. 6.5 million copies in a new platform exclusive IP. That is a triple threat, man. That is a triple threat. Awards, sales, huge goodwill among gamers. And according to Kotaku's metric, it's progressive. And yet they're not singing their praises because entitled gamers like it. And that's how backfire effects work. All right, I've gone on super long, but hope you enjoyed this. Help support this channel because I'm going to take shit for this. I know I am. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.